You know, we have a real life story tonight. A woman named Crissy. She's an incredible woman. And she's going to share with us tonight. Crissy has such a touching story, and she shared it all over the nation. She shared it to colleges, churches, radio interviews, Christianity Today, NBC's Nightline, In Touch Magazine, LA Weekly, British GQ Magazine. Crissy, I didn't even realize there was a British GQ Magazine, but that's awesome. And she's here to share it with us today. Crissy, would you come on up here?
Hi, my name is Crissy, and I used to be a porn star. I'm often asked why I got into the porn business. It wasn't something that I had planned, and there's no simple answer. If you take a broken girl starving for love, mix it with glamour and attention that she's never had before, then you would have me. My story is about a heart that was crushed at a very early age, and the path that changed my identity from deep despair to hope and healing and joy. My earliest memories of my childhood start when I was 4 years old. That was also the age I was first sexually abused by a man in my neighborhood. I can still see the pictures of what happened in my head. This was the first, but not the last, to sexually abuse me. I loved going to church, and I accepted Jesus as my Savior when I was 11 years old. Around that time, my dad became an abusive alcoholic, and he got kicked out of the church. When I was about 12, my parents separated and later divorced. My parents had a big argument right before Christmas, and my dad threatened to kill my mom if she took us in her car to my grandma's house. So she left us behind. After she left, my dad handed us both, my brother and I, both a trash bag and told us to pack what we wanted to take, and then he ran off with us, and just like that, we moved to another city. My mom would come and visit us every weekend in the beginning, but my dad was just getting worse each time, so eventually she stopped coming. My brother and I were very close to our mom before the divorce, so it really affected us. One of the saddest memories from that time was when my mom came to visit us on Valentine's Day. We were gone with my dad all day, and he had been drinking. And even though we kept reminding him that my mom was coming, he ignored us, and we didn't get home until it was too late. This was before cell phones, so I couldn't even let her know where we were. I just pictured my mom waiting on the porch all day, worrying and crying with the candy and Valentines that she left behind. She left a letter saying she had to go home because she was very sick and couldn't wait any longer, and it really broke my heart. When my mom remarried, I made the hard decision to leave my dad and go live with her. I felt completely torn between the two, and with all the back and forth, I had no sense of stability. A lot changed about my mom when she remarried, and she gave all her time and attention to my stepdad. I would visit my dad sometimes, but it was always so hard to transition back and forth between two entirely different worlds, especially because I seemed to be in the middle of all their arguments. I felt like I was being pulled in different directions and just felt confused. During my teen years, I spent a lot of time isolated in my bedroom. When I was around 17, I had my first real relationship, which lasted 2 years. The guy I dated was a little older and in college. He and I were sexually active, and he told me if I ever got pregnant, we would get married and have the baby. To me, having a baby signified having a love that would always be there. When I did end up getting pregnant, he didn't marry me. He took me to get an abortion. When I was at the clinic, they asked me if I wanted to see the baby's heartbeat. And when I saw this tiny little thing blinking inside of me, I left the clinic immediately. My mom wanted me to succeed in life, and she thought having a baby would get in the way. So she took me back to have the abortion, despite the fact that I was desperately wanting to keep my baby. I was fully awake and aware of everything that was going on during the abortion, and my heart shattered while the life was literally being sucked out of me. I sunk into depression after that, and that is when relationships became my addiction. I had to have a man in my life to feel like I was worthy of love. I looked to men to tell me I was beautiful, to make me feel protected, and to give me a sense of stability in my life, things my dad never did. Many of these men were unhealthy and sometimes brought porn into the relationship. It made me feel ugly when they looked at other women, but little did I know that one day I would transform myself into that girl. Dating was dangerous for me because when I went through breakups, I would feel hopeless and sometimes suicidal. After one breakup in particular from a whirlwind romance, I was unable to get out of bed for many days to go to work. I was completely paralyzed, but after a few days, I pulled myself through and was able to return back to work. One day while I was surfing the internet, I found a modeling website where models would post their portfolios online for free and get work. The models didn't look like real models, but they had people testifying about how great they were to work with, so I thought I would give it a try. I never intended to pose in anything less than a bikini, and I turned down many jobs because of that. However, my life was spiraling out of control, and eventually I got to a point where I just didn't care anymore. I felt so empty, and the emails telling me that I was beautiful started to fill the void that the men couldn't feel inside my heart, and that's when I said yes to my first nude shoot. It felt very unnatural meeting a stranger in a hotel room and having him shoot every inch of my body. I was nervous, but I sort of checked out just the way I did when I was younger, when I was sexually abused. The sense of danger was almost exciting to me because I wanted to end up dead. I would often fantasize about it. That's just how messed up I was. A couple years later, I'm in a stereotypical abusive relationship, and the boundaries that I did make with how far I would go in a shoot no longer existed. My boyfriend ended up becoming my manager and took over all aspects of my career. I was afraid of him because he told me every day he was going to put me 6 feet under. I sporadically used drugs to deal with the 3.5 years of abuse. People always ask why I didn't leave. It wasn't as easy as that. We moved across the country from Florida to San Diego, California, where I knew no one. There was a part of him that was very charming and sometimes reminded me of my dad. I already hated myself, and when I began to hate him, I couldn't physically get away from him. He was a trained grappler and would keep me in a hold until I was exhausted. He raped me, beat me, controlled my life, and no one I told would help me leave him because everyone was afraid of him. Complete strangers would see us fighting in public and ask if I needed help, but since he was a really big guy, when he bowed up and told them to leave, they did. The abuse finally ended when I left him with the help of my personal assistant. We hired an assistant, and he moved in with us to help us out, but when he saw how I was being treated, he helped me to run away from him. He was like an angel to me. We moved to Los Angeles, and with my ex no longer controlling my career, I took over and started making more money than I had ever made in the porn industry. I stopped working with men after my abusive ex because I made enough money that I didn't need to. I had a sense of accomplishment because I was finally stable on my own and able to take care of myself. I did end up getting stuck in a financial trap, though, and when I did think about leaving, I had no idea how I'd survive. About a year after moving to LA, I met a new boyfriend who didn't abuse me, and I thought since he didn't beat me and didn't mind that I was important, that he was perfect for me. We dated and lived together for a year and 8 months. Then the adult entertainment industry took a hit on my personal life. He went out of town to work on a mainstream movie, and while he was away, he went to a strip club. In my own twisted way of thinking, it wasn't right for him to be lusting after other women, especially because I was faithful to him. I had worked so hard over all the years at being that perfect fantasy girl so that the men in my life wouldn't want anyone else. Then the reality hit me hard, that even with all the money, the fame, the glamour, and adoration, I still wasn't quite enough. I fell to the floor, and for the first time in forever, I cried out to God. I asked him to show me he was there. I told him to give me a sign because I hadn't felt his presence in my life since I was a little girl. 2 days later, I went to where my boyfriend was filming and met a guy on the set who was a Christian. He asked me what I did for a living, and I tried skirting around the issue, but finally I admitted I did porn. Then he asked me, "Do you believe in God?" I laughed. I was in shock. No one had mentioned God to me since I was a little girl, and in that moment, I realized this was my sign. I went outside to pray with him and accept Jesus back in my heart. I left the relationship and moved out of town for the first time. I left the business without a plan, and I left behind a website that I was still under contract with. I didn't accept any more money from it because I felt God wanted me to make a bold stand and show others the faith that I had that he would take care of me. He was honorable, and through that has deepened my faith even more. It was only a couple months later that someone referred me to Treasures. I began receiving mentoring from Harmony. I always knew I had a safe place to go for counseling and a support group, although it took me a while to accept help. I was like many of the girls, seeking help, then pushing it away, but once I was ready for it, I went full force into my healing journey. I participated in events, volunteered on outreaches, and began attending the support group. Fast forward 5.5 years, here I am, still alive by God's grace. I am now on staff at Treasures. I'm speaking, and I'm part of the care team, so I talk to the girls one-on-one and share with them my personal journey to a new life. I also coordinate the therapist-led support group each week. I work in the best and most supportive environment possible, and by working here, I have regained my self-confidence so that if it is God's will, I can easily transition into a job outside of Treasures. I really can't say enough good things about my experience here. I have sought after God and after deep inner healing and an atmosphere of continual encouragement. Recently, Treasures has started having workshops for different topics, from rebuilding your life to finances to health and fitness. The last one I attended was on post-abortion recovery, which marks the start of healing that broken place I still have. I'm no longer codependent, and my worth is no longer dependent upon the love of men. I have healthy boundaries in my relationships, and I've learned how to guard my heart. I feel like I'm able to finally make healthy decisions in my life. It's exciting to see myself growing stronger and stronger and leaving my fears behind. Harmony's vision, the vision of Treasures, inspires women to pursue their healing journeys at their own pace by giving them a safe place to be with mentors and women who have been through similar situations, a place where people truly understand what you're going through. And I want to say thank you, Harmony, for being a living example of what faith and hope can do. I have learned what it is to be filled with joy, and for the first time in my life, I truly do feel loved, valued, and purposed. Thank you.